All right, what a night it was last night. 4 U.S. presidents were in New York City yesterday. Former President Donald Trump, the only one who attended the wake of NYPD officer Jonathan Diller, who was shot and killed during a traffic stop on Monday. The man who allegedly shot him had 21 prior arrests. Here's what President Trump said about all of that yesterday. Watch.
The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them, and this should never happen. I just visited with a very beautiful wife that now doesn't have her husband. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often.
Now, President Biden has yet to publicly comment on NYPD Diller's death. But he was just a few miles away from the wake yesterday in a big fundraising party and taping a podcast with former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Joining me now is Fox News contributor. She is former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker. Nicole, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. The optics don't look good. President Trump at the wake, talking with the family, trying to comfort Stephanie, his wife, and Biden with Obama and Clinton yakking it up on stage with a late-night host and at celebrities all around.
Maria, this is an absolute slap in the face to Officer Diller, to his family, and to all police officers nationwide. But you know what? Frankly, it's par for the course. I'm not really shocked by this. And first of all, let me just tell you, the local law enforcement, they are the backbone of our nation's safety and security. Look, I was a special agent with the FBI, and I'm going to tell you, the FBI is not the backbone of the nation's safety and security. It is local law enforcement officers that are working the streets day in and day out. For an average officer who works maybe 20 to 25 years for their career, they could be responding to approximately 60,000 calls in their career. Every single day, they are responding to 911 calls. You're not calling 911 because it's your greatest event. You're calling 911 because you're in desperate need of help. And do you know who's showing up to help you? It's the local law enforcement officers. And they deserve our respect. It is 60,000 times approximately, let's say, there's an unknown behind that door. There's an unknown at that traffic stop. But they put their lives on the line every single day for complete strangers. And they deserve our honor and respect. And for the President of the United States to not even acknowledge this officer's death is absolutely despicable and disgusting.
Well, I mean, you're talking about local law enforcement versus the FBI. We all, used to look at the FBI as the most important law enforcement agency in the world. You walked away from the job. You left the FBI. Why? Because you said you couldn't take it anymore. It was like 2 FBIs.
That's right. Maria, I joined the FBI because I was a witness to the 9/11 terrorist attacks in New York City, and I did want to give back and serve my country one day, and so I did. I went on to apply the FBI after working on Wall Street, and I'll tell you, it was an incredible career. It started off very well, and I felt like I was making an impactful difference, working violent crime, crimes against children, white-collar crime. But as time progressed, the politicization started seeping into the organization. And right now, the FBI, it's as if there are 2 FBIs. And there was recently an article that came out that talked about FBI agents internally that are disgusted and they are not happy with what is happening at the FBI. There was a FOIA request that was submitted that revealed emails that have been sent by FBI agents to the Ombudsman Department, which is a way to provide confidential information to those up in the higher ranks to express to them what they felt. And the FBI has a problem because you've got 2 sets. You've got FBI 1, which are FBI agents that are just trying to do the right thing. They came to serve their country. They want to uphold the Constitution. They want to be fair. And they don't really want anything to do with the politics. FBI 2, on the other hand, are those that are coming in and using their law enforcement power to push their political agendas. And it's dangerous for our country. And internally, you don't hear about FBI 1 much. They're just silently holding the line. They're doing what they need to do to get the job done. But I can tell you, there is a problem inside the organization, and the upper level echelons and the leadership, they failed to acknowledge it. But there are still good people that are trying to do the right thing at the organization. But I agree, right now, we need to be focusing on getting back to the basics, cutting out the politics, and a complete reform and overhaul at the FBI.
Yeah, what a complete shame. that you're talking about, that what has occurred at the FBI. I mean, look, we're talking about so many issues that affect all of us. For example, this squatting issue is getting me, insane. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the only one who did anything about it. He signed legislation into law this week to eliminate squatters' rights in the state. Nicole, you've got people going into people's homes and saying, this is my home. I've been here and I'm squatting here and I'm going to change the locks and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you don't get back into your home. Where's the FBI on that? It took Ron DeSantis in Florida to say, you're done, squatters. How come we're not seeing more of that here?
Do you know why? Because of who your leadership is. Frankly, I'm a resident of Florida. Thank goodness, because Governor Ron DeSantis is phenomenal. I think him and Governor Abbott, who's from my home state of Texas, they are the best in the nation. And you know what, New York, they're not. They have such a progressive approach to enforcing laws and things of that nature. In Florida, the hardworking individuals, the law-abiding citizens, it's your right to live the way that you want to live. If you're a landlord and an owner of property, it's your right to be able to do things the way that they should be done properly. But in New York, the squatters have the rights. And that's what's wrong in our country right now. It's those that are not keeping the laws that seem to have more rights and are running this country. It's got to end. And I think Americans are waking up to it, Maria. I really, truly do. And just one more point.
Go ahead.
One more point. I want to go back real quickly to this funeral. And I just want to point this out for the record. We had 2 FBI special agents who were killed on February 2nd of 2021. It was 2 weeks to the day after President Biden took office after the inauguration. And do you know who did not show up for the FBI special agents' funerals? It was President Biden. He was not present. He was not there. And it was a very loud and clear message to us that he did not care. And that is not appropriate. It is not acceptable. Those were the first 2 line-of-duty deaths, adversarial deaths, in 13 years at the FBI. And the President of the United States was nowhere to be found. Yeah. I guarantee if President Trump had still been in office, he would have been there and he would have supported the law enforcement officers, especially on the federal level. So again, I think President Biden should have been there for Officer Diller's memorial service. He was not, but certainly he should have been there for the federal agents' memorial service, and he was not. So again, this is par for the course.
Yeah. Cheryl Casoni, jump in here. It just feels like everything this administration and the Democrats do is about holding on to their grip on power. It's not about the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at how this president has behaved. I mean, Nicole, reminded me of what we saw with that disaster that was Afghanistan, because Joe Biden, whether it was the southern border or Afghanistan or any other issue, what we're seeing with, well, I hate to say this, New York bail reform, all of that is because he wants to undo everything that Donald Trump did while in office. And now look where we are, Nicole. And, by the way, Nicole, you reminded me of something. By the way, when Biden landed at JFK, I'm asking, he landed at JFK, that was 6 miles from the funeral of that, or the wake, excuse me, of that NYPD officer. Couldn't the Secret Service have just, I don't know, a quick drive over just to pay his respects? He was 6 miles away, Nicole. I don't know. You tell me. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely believe so. You're the president of the United States. You can pretty much do what you need to do to get the job done if you want to do it bad enough. And that's really what it comes down to. But you know what, frankly, I don't know that he would have been well received at that wake, because law enforcement knows who supports them and who does not support them. And you've seen it before with de Blasio. I know that NYPD turned their backs on him, and maybe he just didn't want an unwelcomed reception. I don't care if people turn their backs on you. You show up anyway, because that's your job. You're the president of the United States. You're not the president of one half of the country. You have to respect and represent everybody. And these law enforcement officers, again, putting their lives on the line every single day, they deserve better. Our local cops deserve better.
Well, what gets me is they lie about it. They've got their policies that are against America, and then after we are clearly see that those policies failed, they try to blame the Republicans. Look at Biden now saying that the border being open is Trump's fault. It's ridiculous, as if anyone buys that. Look at the Democrats trying to say that it was the Republicans trying to defund the police, which is absolutely outrageous and not true. We all know that. But they still try to lie to your face anyway and say, oh, no, that wasn't my idea. That was the Republicans.
Americans see through it. They're opening
Yeah.
up their eyes, and let's see what happens this election.
All right, Nicole, thank you. Thanks for weighing in. Nicole Parker.